That was a common Bengals W about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp. This is Common Bengals W. Still in this studio. I got some Bengals stuff up there. Got the other studio, in construction as always at this point. But I wanted to talk about Bengals Draft Day 2 and 3 because I didn't get to cover those. I had a loss in the family almost immediately after that, and I was just a little down in the dumps. Tried to take a little time off of work and all that, so I did not have time to give this the care and the attention that it deserved. But glad to be back. Glad to be talking about how Day 2 and 3 in the Cincinnati Bengals draft went. And the reason I did this today on a Wednesday, which is usually one of my busiest days at work, is because, one, got a busy day at work today, but the full schedule drops. And when the schedule drops, I'm going to be doing another show this weekend, I would imagine. So we'll be talking about that as well. I'm very excited for the Bengals 2024 season. I think that it's going to go well. Some concerns about the early schedule leak, which is Chiefs away week 2. The Bengals, notoriously slow starters. That's got to change this year. The Bengals have to start fast. Now, I asked a question on my Common Bengals W Twitter yesterday, I think it was. Go follow it, Common Bengals W. And I said, knowing what we know now about Jake Browning, how do you think the first 4 weeks of the season would have went had he started? Joe Burrow had that injured calf, but we see now that Jake Browning is one of the better backups in the league. Could he have gotten them one more win? Could he have gotten them to a point where the Bengals could have had a 10-win season? And listen, that extra win at the start of the season, if you go in 2-2 instead of 1-3, well, my gosh, you never know how that domino effect will roll. And also, had he gotten those early reps weeks 1 through 4, who knows how even better prepared he would have been for late in the season when he did do well. Like, I think that could have had ramifications in the Steelers game. Could have maybe changed the tide there. Also, though, I wonder if Jake Browning had started week 1 and 2, if Joe Burrow would have been ready for 3 and 4. You know what I mean? Which, the Titans' ass kicking was the only one that there was there. Chris says Browning looked bad in preseason, so I'm worried that would have carried over. He didn't look strong. You're right, but he looked strong enough to beat out a veteran starter in Trevor Siemian. And obviously, like that is a thing that mattered. And when the calf came up last year, I said that a priority had to be get a solid backup for Joe Burrow. Love the dude. Glad that we signed him to this huge contract, which is already looking a little bit better because of Jared Goff getting $53 million. And by the time Joe Burrow's money kicks in, who knows? I mean, look at Pat Mahomes. He's like 10th right now. But considering the ACL, the appendix surgery, the calf, the wrist, you got to have a good backup quarterback. And I think Jake Browning is that. And you got him for a couple of years. So want the Bengals to start out strong. Because listen, last year they started against the Cleveland Browns. That's a team you want to play against. The Los Angeles Rams, they won that one. Yeah. Tennessee Titans, there's no reason to get their asses kicked by that Tennessee Titans team. The Bengals should have had at least 4 wins going into their bye week, probably 5. They beat teams like the Bills and the Niners. They beat good teams last year. And they lost to a lot of bad teams as well. I mean, there's so many games last year, if we look at, they should have beat the Ravens. If there's a healthy Joe Burrow, week 2, they beat the Ravens. If they didn't screw up a couple of pretty imperative things, week 10 against the Texans, they should have won that game. They were given every chance to win that game. The Bengals should have been an 11-win team last year. Now, I'm not willing to say like the year prior where I'm like, damn, there was only one game they really shouldn't have won. Because the year prior, they should have beat the Steelers. They should have beat the Cowboys. They should have beat the Ravens. That they really should have beat the Chiefs in the conference championship. There was only one game, and that was against the Browns, that the Bengals really should have lost there. But listen, the Bengals started off 1-3 last year. They started off 0-2 the year prior, 2-3 in 2022, if you want to really get down to it. The really the best start that they had was 2021. But that's when they started off like 5-2. And then obviously the year prior, you got Joe Burrow as a rookie, and they got one win in their first 6-7 games. And you can say what you want about that, but they got to start faster. Traditionally, they start very slow. So Nicholas says, glad to see you back, brother. Thoughts and prayers. Thank you so much. Connor says 212 mil over 4 years just to finish second in the NFC North is wild. Listen, I got confidence in the Lions. I like the Lions. If there's an NFC team I like, it is the Lions. But also, I mean, how wild is it that Jared Goff is only 2 years older than Joe Burrow? Because when I saw that, I'm like, okay, giving a guy in his 30s that kind of contract. And then I looked and I'm like, oh my God, he doesn't turn 30 until October. But he got drafted 4 years prior. Man, insane. Are you hoping the road games fall on PLE weekends? Well, it doesn't really matter that much to me. For those of you who, for some godforsaken reason, if you're choosing my content in addition to or over the other great Bengals content that's out there, I cover pro wrestling full time, but WWE does their PLEs on Saturdays. And in the football season, AEW does theirs on Saturdays as well. I'm going to be honest with you. If it ever falls on the day of a Bengals game, I'm watching the Bengals game. I'm taking a day off. That's what I'm going to do for my own mental health and my own sanity, and something for myself, something that I wouldn't have done in years prior. It's something that I'm doing now. But I don't usually have to worry about that. As far as the road games, it doesn't matter to me, because if they do a PLE Saturday, I'm good to go for Sunday. I'm good to go. Also, I want to talk about Trey Hendrickson. Didn't like that he asked for a trade and then threatened to retire. That just wasn't going to happen. He was not going to retire. It just unreal threats and all that stuff. I immensely respect the way that he handled the last couple of weeks. He did an interview with, I think it was Jeff Hobson, and he said that he's very blessed to play for a great team. They got the quarterback that can win the Super Bowl. And he said that he was told no, and it's something that he wanted to explore all options. If it wasn't going to happen long-term there, he wanted to explore the option where he'd have the benefit of doing that. But it's like, man, last year, before the year, you signed an extension that put you there for 3 years. So that was long-term. That is long-term in the NFL. As a defensive guy that is, gosh, he's probably nearing 30 now. He's 29. Yeah, he'll be 30 this year. You can't expect them to tack on like 4 or 5 years onto that. He's a fantastic player. I think with Myles Murphy getting more involved, he's going to be even better. They're going to be a great threat. But I really respect how Trey Hendrickson handled this. He's like, was in a little in my feels there. Here I am for voluntary camp, which he didn't have to be at. And I will be playing this season, because this season, me not playing doesn't help the team, and that's what I wanted to do. So hats off to Trey Hendrickson for how he handled things after that. Listen, I'm not going to hold it against him that he asked for a trade or anything like that. Did I like it? No, I didn't. But you never like it when a player asks for a trade from your team, because everybody's got an affinity and an affection for their own team, right? Also, much love to Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd bridged some gaps. You know what I mean? Bridged some gaps in the Cincinnati Bengals history, from Andy Dalton and him being, and Tyler Boyd being a great second round pick, by the way. to the Joe Burrow era to even the Jake Browning era. He is an 8-year veteran of the Cincinnati Bengals. Played some playoff games for us and the like, but he's moving on to the Tennessee Titans. He's making $4.5 million a year, which I'm sure is significantly less than what he expected. However, I said this last year. Tyler Boyd was a number 3, and I felt like at the beginning of last season, based on his history, I felt like there were some places where he could compete as a number 1. Now, could he be the number 1? I don't know, but he could compete as a number 1. After 2023, all due respect to Tyler Boyd, I don't feel that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I think that Tyler Boyd is a mid to lower end wide receiver 2 at this point of his career. After he has been wide receiver 1 or high end wide receiver 2 quality. That being said, man, thank him so much for the memories and the work and the pain he put himself through so many times. Guy was a gamer. Guy was an absolute gamer and always going to have a lot of love for Tyler Boyd. And I hope he looks upon his time with the Bengals very fondly, even though, he didn't get that extension or anything like that. I love that, about once a season, until last year when there was that horrible interception, but like once a year you could count on a trick play that would result in a big gain from Tyler Boyd. And then the last couple seasons, he got sacked for 12 yards and threw the pick and all that. But shout out to him. Shout out to Tyler Boyd. Also, Joe Burrow, the day after there was this weird Twitter account that was like, oh, he's never going to be the same. Well, then they show him throwing. He's good to go. I hope this is the year he gets a full camp. Man has never got a full camp. I don't know what that means for preseason, but hopefully he gets a full camp because I'm sick of the Joe Burrow not getting a full camp thing. What's up, Sean in chat? What are your thoughts on some NFL games being on Netflix during the holiday season? I understand why some people don't like it because it further dilutes things. However, I've got all these services. I have to have them for wrestling. So for me, and maybe it's an unfair comparison. Like I don't mind it that much. Like I understand they want to globalize the NFL. They want to widen the audience. They want to do that as much as possible. So I get it and I understand it. I definitely understand it. I would be interested in chat's thoughts. If you're watching here on X, on my X Twitter or the Common Bengals W or the YouTube, let me know what you think. We don't do super chats over here like on Fightful. So just let me know what you guys think about this, about the broadening base of NFL TV. So last time I spoke with you guys was let me pull up the Bengals draft stuff as I just killed my own intro there. It was after night 1 of the draft. Amarius Mims was picked. I think it is some much needed depth there because you're probably going to have to go guard next year. Probably have to go guard in the first few rounds next year. But love that because, Brown is over there at right tackle. So Mims can get some time to adjust, gain some experience that people are longing for in that regard. And then the other side of the trenches was a big point of concern for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, they got Sheldon Rankins. DJ Reader's gone. But here's what I like about what the Cincinnati Bengals have done. The Bengals looked at their deficiencies or upcoming holes. They said, okay, Tyler Boyd is leaving. He's going away in free agency. So what we're going to do is get Mike Gesicki, who, even though he's listed as a tight end, is going to line up in slot an awful lot. Then in the 3rd round, we're going to draft Jermaine Burton, who is very high upside, has a Bengals connection with TJ Houshmandzadeh. They drafted very high upside in this draft. So round 3, they get Jermaine Burton, who people look at and they go, oh, well, he could be round 1 or 2 talent, at least round 2 talent. Cool. So they get Gesicki and Jermaine Burton to fill that hole. And then T. Higgins, assuming he leaves next year, Jermaine Burton can slide into that spot pretty easily. So that's what they did there. Offensive line. Jonah Williams is gone. He went to Arizona. Jonah Williams was a really bad left tackle who became a pretty decent right tackle. So what they did is they got Brown, who is, I would say, comparable to Jonah Williams. There are motivation and injury issues there. But listen, when you talk about motivation issues, Jonah requested a trade last year. So they get Brown, and then they pick up Mims. So it's not replacing one player with one player. They're like, okay, we're going to get Brown and Mims. And if for some reason Brown is the absolute shits, we're going to try out Mims. Or if Brown gets hurt, we got Mims. With Tyler Boyd gone, we got Gesicki, we got Jermaine Burton. Cool. On the defensive line, DJ Reader is gone. I don't know if I haven't heard his health update, but that's a big hole to fill. But even then, the defensive line was ass trash last year. I mean, absolute garbage last year. Garbage. So they got Sheldon Rankins, who is not as good as DJ Reader, but an appropriate free agent signing to fill that hole. But what they also did, round 2, they get Chris Jenkins, who you look at and you go, okay, he's probably going to get an awful lot of snaps. He's going to get an awful lot of reps, and it'll probably end up starting in 2025. Then what they do is in round 3, they add to that and they get McKinley Jackson, who I know a lot of people thought was a bit of a stretch there, but they went and they got him, and now they've got sort of the depth there, the depth appropriately looked at. And then, you never know what happens with BJ Hill next year. Maybe he goes. Maybe they're looking to get cheaper there. So I like that. I like the offensive line pick round 1. Love defensive line 2 and 3. Wide receiver round 4 or round 3 as well. And after last year, and if you've watched any of my shows about the Cincinnati Bengals, you know how important I think the tight end position has become for them. And last year, I wanted a high-end tight end. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe they're not throwing to him. And I've said this ad nauseum. The Bengals should have been throwing to tight ends an awful lot more weeks 1 through 4 when Joe Burrow had his injured calf and had to get the ball off quicker. However, midway through the season, they discovered they could do that. And not only could they do it, they did it with great success. Go look at the catch rates of tight ends on the Bengals midway through the season, through the end of the season. It was obscene. It was like 75 to 80% catch rate. So they brought back Tanner Hudson. They re-signed Drew Sample. They've got Gesicki listed as a tight end. However, he is probably going to be in the slot. So what the Bengals did is they went and they got Eric All and Tanner McLaughlin. Now, I don't know about doubling up there, but Eric All is a very, very high upside guy. If he can stay healthy, he is probably round 2 or 3 level quality. And in the NFL, if you find a very athletic, big tight end that can make things work for you, well, then you are going to be doing pretty good. So with Eric All, Tanner Hudson, and Drew Sample, I feel really good about the tight end position. Now, granted, we haven't really seen Eric All get any playing time or anything like that. So we'll see how that works. Okay. Secondary, huge point of concern last year. The safeties were terrible. The corners were terrible. We know Cam Taylor-Britt is going to be good. We know that. They went and got a new safety, and one that they desperately needed in Geno Stone. Badly needed. Dax Hill is being moved to corner to compete. I think he'll do better there than a lot of people expect. They bring back Von Bell, who didn't get as much playing time last year as you would have thought after he left the Bengals. They brought him back. They're probably going to get him back into the rotation. They drafted Deshaun Anthony, 7th round. Sure, whatever. Already a crowded safety room. But round 5, they drafted Josh Newton. Now, I do wish the Bengals would get a corner with some experience. Listen, I don't know about Eli Apple coming back, but at this point, it wouldn't be the worst thing, but the Bengals, I feel like need a piece in secondary. However, what they did was moved Dax Hill to corner, so you've got an extra corner. They drafted Josh Newton, so again, you're sort of replacing a little bit there. Nick Scott's long gone. Can't believe somebody else signed him. And then they get Geno Stone, Von Bell to sort of replace Dax Hill in that sense. The Bengals should have re-signed Jesse Bates when they had the chance. Should have. Cedric Johnson, guy out of Mississippi, defensive end, very athletic. We'll see how he goes. Don't know enough about him to really make a decision. However, I think one of the best picks in the entire NFL draft was the Cincinnati Bengals 7th round pick. Matt Lee, 22 years old, a center. Ted Karras, we like Ted Karras, but, listen, next year we're going to have to look at what his contract is, how his performance is, and see what's going on, because Matt Lee, within a year or two, could end up being the starting center of the Cincinnati Bengals as a 7th round pick. And generally, you can get pretty good value there. Now, that being said, Ted Karras is, he was one of the building blocks when, like, after the Bengals went to the Super Bowl and they said, okay, we got to get some guys. He was one of them. Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, Lyle Collins. Lyle Collins went and was not what any of us thought he would be. Alex Kappa has been just fine. And Ted Karras has been very, very solid for the Cincinnati Bengals. But last year of his deal, 3-year, $18 million contract. And I look at Matt Lee and I go, okay, that could be a big savings situation for the Cincinnati Bengals down the line. That being said, I hope that Karras plays out of his mind this year. So whenever the schedule release happens, I'll be back. I'll do another show, whether it be immediately after or whatever. But I wanted to stop by, do this show. I haven't been putting these up on podcast platforms. I'm sorry. I don't think any of you give a shit. But very glad to be back. Very excited about the Bengals season. Man, like the draft. And man, it is a stacked AFC North, man. Stacked AFC North. Until next time, my friends, we're out.